JonMyers.com.
Well, hello there, Clementine. The man kneeled back beside her, tilting his head. He was a tall man with a thick brown beard. His eyes were deep blue, which contrasted with his graying hair. He looked up at them, glaring daggers at him. How did he know her name? His voice was gravelly, which sent shivers up her spine as the memories of Carver flooded in her mind. "Who are you?" she spat, wincing in pain through her abdomen. The man slowly chewed on a toothpick as weighing her in her words. He looked back at what seemed to be undoubtedly Soberon lines, and by command they leave Clementine and him alone. He stood up, eyeing her from above with a disdainful look. "How rude of me," he apologized, grabbing one of the chairs and taking a seat. "My name is John Myers, but you can call me Myers," he said, extending her hand to her. Clementine looked away and raised an eyebrows, choosing to stay on the floor, anger boiling inside her. She spat on his face, making him flinch. He pierced his lips, closing his hand and clearing his throat. "So much for a friendly introduction," he croaked, with a dirty handkerchief wiped his face. "You should be thanking me. I'm the reason you're alive." "Funny, I thought you were the reason why I'm locked up in this chicken coop," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Well, that might be true. Well, some of my many associates weren't as keen to keep you alive," he disclosed, playing with the toothpick in his mouth. "I am convinced I'm otherwise." "Gee, thank you," she mocked. "You must be a saint or something." "I want to ask you some questions, if you please." He attempted to diplomatic route, ignoring her jab at him. She stared at him for a moment, weighing at her choices. There was definitely no way out of this by force. The man was well built, and his arms were thick as tree trunks. He wore a military uniform with a name tag on his left breast that read Myers. Sighing, she nodded in agreement. "Let's start off with the easy one, shall we?" he began with a smile. "What group are you from?" "You think I'm stupid enough to tell you that?" she spat, rolling her eyes again. Myers pinched the bridge of his nose. "Well, that's not what I want to hear, Clementine." "How do you know my name?" she asked with a heroic effort. She lifted herself off the ground, propping herself with her elbow, and the pain in her stomach did not subside, but she fought the urge to scream. "I know you, Clementine," he said, raising an eyebrow. "We have something in common, at least. We're both of the part of the New Frontier," he explained, pulled his shirt down and exposed his chest, revealing the round black scar around his left breast, the same one that adorned Clementine's arm for years. Clementine's hand instinctively went too far to her arm, which she had her own scar that had been etched on her skin almost a decade ago. She thought of her in time of the Glowford prison, enduring the pain of staying with those monsters for AJ's sake. How times have changed. "So what if we were she abducted with a civil tone, seeing no benefit to put up a fight. "They kicked me out 9 years ago." "That's true," he said. He mused, nodding pensively. "You see, my friends and I have a little system set up. All you need to know is, what community are you from? You'll be back home safely in no time," the man quipped. Her eyebrows knitted. "I'm alone," she lied, looking the man straight in the eye. "You're alone?" he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "I don't suppose this walkie-talkie thing you're carrying was for safekeeping, wasn't it?" He fumbled on the back of his belt and waved it in the air. Luckily to her, she was most likely out of range of Gabe's, so there was no way of communicating with them. Unfortunately, that meant that there was no way of reaching out to Richmond. She fought back the walkie-talkie back from the man from Holly. She started, and she fought back with how the world has gone downhill. She used to talk to her parents with it, having secret conversations with her father, and when her mom were out for work, the memories of using it to talk to the man who kidnapped her, the first time flooded in her mind, and the second time around wasn't much fun either. "It was my father's," he explained calmly. "When he died, he asked me to take care of it for him." "That's so," Myers drawled, inspecting the vice fully. "Your father was in the military?" Taken back by the question, she blinked. "Yeah," she blurted. "Air Force?" "Yes." Myers had placed it suspiciously and stood up. He moved the chair sideways and placed it in front of hers. His breathing, even with the footsteps, were strong. Clem stared at him as she walked. Her eyes were moving back and forth out of nowhere, and the man raised a hand and smacked the woman in the face. She buckled back away from the blow, blood spurting from her lip. "Stop lying, girlie," he barked, stumping forward and towering over for her. He raised his arm once more, making Clementine flinch slightly. The man smirked, lowering his arm again, and he turned onto his back to her, pocketing the walkie-talkie. "It's all right, though. You'll talk eventually," he drawled. "They always do," she heard him say before the metal door closed behind him. As she left, Clementine allowed herself to spit out the blood on the floor. She quickly clutched her stomach, caressing softly. "You're okay," she kept whispering, closing her eyes. She just imagined she saw no reasonable way out of this from the inside. But with every ounce of her body, she prayed that Lewis would find her soon. Back in Richmond, Lewis stood up in the room, furiously packing his supplies into a backpack. The midday sun came and it was on him on the window. The warmth could only comfort the freckled man he could find his current situation. AJ stood up on the Ferris hold between their rooms, hesitantly fidgeting with his small hands. The small boy opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His old world had been turned upside down within a few hours. For as long as they knew, Clem had been there with him for the evening. He had never thought of her in the position of danger. It was Clementine after all. But they were about to embark a mission to attempt to rescue her. When the man finally turned, he jumped for joy at the sight. "AJ, Jesus, man, you're gonna give me a heart attack one day." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you," AJ said, looking down. "Where are you going, Lewis?" the boy asked in a weak whisper. Lewis walked forward and kneeled down in front of AJ and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm going with Javi to find a man that might be able to help get Clem back." "But do you have to go? Can't Javi go alone?" "I gotta go with him, little dude," Lewis argued, frowning. "I need to know if there's a chance of finding her, and I'm not waiting around to find out." "Then I want to go with you," the boy decided, puffing out his chest. Lewis pierced his lips and shook his head sadly. "I can't let you do that, dude," he told him. "I already lost Clem. I'm not risking losing you." "I could take care of myself," AJ declared, scrunching up his nose. "Clem is the only mom I've ever known, Lewis. I can't lose her." He trailed off. His tears were swelling in his eyes. The freckled man wasted no time embracing the boy and stroking his back with assuming rhythm and whispering comforting words in his ear. "We won't lose her, little man. I promise you I'll find her, even if it's the last thing I do. Pinky promise?" AJ said, suddenly lifting his left pinky. Lewis chuckled and promptly nodded, enjoying the boy. AJ helped Lewis pack the rest of the supplies. Javi had said that he needed to together to go do a few things in the main office. The Roberts man named Charlie stood on one of the side doors and he crossed his arms menacingly. With a simple nod, he let them through the door. On the other side, Javi sat on his desk. A map sprawled out over it. Lewis and AJ took a seat on one of the seats, eyeing Javier. Under the faint of the candles, Lewis noticed the older man's graying hair and beard. He had bags under his eyes, and he fainted and the wrinkles started to form on the edges of his eyes. It had been that way since the freckled man realized just how old Javi looked recently. "So," Lewis began with a way of introduction, making Javier look up from his map. "Who is this Jesus character Gabe mentioned earlier?" The older man sighed and propped his elbows on the desk, entwining with his fingers. He and his people helped Richmond get a long time ago when it was overrun by a herd. I rank on this group that could have been encountered with the right arm in the past. It could point us in the right direction. "But," Lewis said, frowning, "there's always a but. But it might be hard convincing them to help us," Javi explained, leaning his back on the chair. "A few years ago at Hilltop, that was the name of his community, was attacked by a group themselves called the Saviors, and he had sent for our help." "And you didn't help them," Lewis concluded, pinching the bridge of his nose. "That's right, we barely self-sustainable by then, but we couldn't lose any people to someone else's war," Javier went on, closing his eyes. I wanted to help him, and I really did." Sensing a sensitive topic, Lewis cleared his throat. "So where is this hilltop? Was it?" Javier nodded and pointed at the map, and it had a drawing of a small dirt mound right in front of it in the miles from a town called Alexandra. The candles were on either side of the map as the cast ratios to shadows, and the paper that Lewis examined it, calculating his head in the distance between Richmond, mid, and there. It's about 150 miles north, so we'll take a car, Javi assured him, seemingly reading Lewis's mind. We'll be there in a few hours. What about AJ? Lewis asked, gesturing to the boy who piqued at said of the mention of his name. He could stay with Gabe while we're out, Javi said, earning a snort from Lewis. Really, Gabe? He questioned, crossing his arms. AJ followed the man's lead and crossed his arms as well, frowning at Javier. I know I don't trust him, Lewis, but he could take care of him for a day. Lewis widened his proposal, eyeing at Javier on the left, although it was prospect of leaving the boy with a man who became bearing news and his wife's disappearance wasn't pleasant. Time was of an essence. He didn't know how long Clem had left, and he wasn't about to test his luck. All right, he breathed, shaking his head. But, AJ began, but before it was cut off by Lewis. You'll be fine, little man, he assured him. I won't be long, and you can just stay in your own room and draw, right? I guess, AJ shrugged, looking down at his hands. Then it's settled, Javi announced. Getting up, and the pair followed the leader out of the office, nodding on the guard outside door. When they got to the staircase, AJ gave Lewis a big hug, extending from the never promise to a comeback safety, and ran up the stairs towards him. The two men chuckled at the building. They walked through the streets of Richmond towards the main gate, where the two armed guards were at the top of the high walls. A big red R had been painted on the side of the gate. Lewis noticed and walked towards it. There was a small row of 4 cars stood. The nearest one Lewis saw was a gray-eyed woman fidgeting with her long curly hair. Lizzie? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Hey, Javi, she smiled effusively. Lewis, she added, nodding at him. I asked her to come with us for reinforcement, Javi explained, Blaine handing her one of the rifles that sat on his back on the blue of the sedan. She's a great shot, and I trust her with my life. Oh, that's good, Lewis trailed off, jumping back when they heard the distinctive grind noise at the gate opening. From the distance, he spotted a familiar, but of course a straight blonde hair walking towards him. Allowing himself to smile, he embraced Violet fiercely. Easy there, cowboy, she teased, patting him on the back. What's the matter? Lewis looked at Javi and then back at Violet. Taking a deep breath, he then said, Clem's been kidnapped. What? Violet boomed. Her eyes were wide as plates. How? When? She stammered. Yesterday, he informed her. She was on a hunt with Gabe and he lost track of her. I can't believe it. Javi and I are going to another community to ask for help and assume who their leader is. Some Jesus guy or whatever, he said. And I thought it would be a normal day for one, she commented, her brows tightly knitted. Hey, Vi, would you mind keeping an eye on AJ? Lewis inquired. I left him with Gabe, but I really don't trust him. Not anymore. He's in this room right now. Violet nodded. Of course. I'll take him to the back to the school with me, she croaked. I'll tell the others as well. They'll want to help, you know. I know, but for now we have this under control, Lewis said, offering the blonde a sweet smile. You know you don't have to act tough for me, right? Said Violet, raising an eyebrow. I could see it through you, she teased, punching him lightly on the shoulder. Without a second thought, Lewis embraced her again, fighting back the tears that were threatening to spill from his eyes. Violet returned to the pressure, closing her eyes and thinking about all the times that she had consoled her. She'd be damned if her best friend was going through this alone. We're going to find her, Lewis, she assured, holding him in his arm's length. I promise.
Why, hello there, my little pretties. It's me, the Shadow Lioness. I hope you all enjoy my video of creepypasta. So, without further ado, if you liked the video, please leave a like. And if you want to survive my cave of terror, please hit the subscribe button down below. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Donate to my Patreon when you can. And the only way you're going to survive me in the cave is you're going to have to sub to me and press the bell for notifications so you'll get to know when I upload. Well, without further ado, my little pretties, I'll see you